The query of tapering medications or tapering in general. So we have this concept of taper, which is to gradually decrease. You don't want to come down suddenly. And I was thinking about it recently because, due to my friend talking to my wife about miralax, polyethylene glycol, being bad for the baby, my wife went on to stop it. So basically, we've been off of it for a few days. We didn't taper it off like I thought we would. We would. And she's okay, surprisingly. Or maybe not for long, who knows. But the question is whether you need to taper. The logic behind it makes a lot of sense, right? Your body is used to something and it's come gradually, not all of a sudden, right? So, for example, steroids. We taper steroids if you've been on it for a long period of time because we say that your body's dependent on it. Same with alcohol, all these things. If you just only drink for a little bit, it's not a big deal. But if you're a chronic alcoholic, you drink multiple drinks every day. If you come all of a sudden, it's dangerous. You could get seizures and stuff. Same with steroids. If you come off all of a sudden, you could drop your cortisol levels because you don't have the exogenous from the medicine, and your body's own adrenal glands aren't working too well because they've sort of taken a break, taken a vacation. They haven't been needed for a while. So some things we think tapering is necessary, some things we think we don't. And I think it's interesting because I think some people generally tend to taper everything, like salt tablets. Somebody said I should taper it. I talked to my friend who's a kidney doctor, and he's like, "No, just stop it. You don't need to." And I did it, just stop it, and it was fine. But the thing is, why do we taper? Why do we think the body can't compensate? Or rather, broadening the picture, why do we believe in the concept of tapering, right? So when you've been using crutches and your leg is healing, do we say you need to come off your crutches gradually? Just decrease it, a little bit at a time. Don't just stop using it all of a sudden. Go down a few hours and then a few more. Maybe use it every other day. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous, right? You're like, your leg's healed, you're fine. Just quit using your crutches, right? The doctor said you could walk on your leg. Do it. Throw those crutches away. Or use them or whatever they do with them. So why then do we believe that we need a taper, right? I feel it's interesting, this idea of rejuvenation or helping the body, right? Sometimes we take medications because we're helping the body. Sometimes we make energy because we're counteracting what the body's doing. So, for example, most chemotherapy is actually counteracting the body. It's just killing the body, sort of indiscriminately, but hopefully kill more cancer cells than not. But certain immunotherapies stimulate your body's immune system and ramp it up. And you're saying, okay, guys, you guys are doing a good job. Let me help you some more, right? It's like you have a person running. They need some boost, right? Immunotherapy, boost the immune system. Give those foot soldiers some more ammunition. And I think that's interesting because I think the way I think of it, and say it more specifically in terms of my daughter and pooping. So she didn't poop very well before. She doesn't know how to poop. I mean, who does, right? But as a baby, when you're a newborn, the stuff just comes out. It's like loose, soggy. All that is normal. That'd be considered diarrhea for those of us who are adults, or above even the age of, say, 5. But for them, that's normal. So it just comes out. There's not much work involved. And then later, as the stool forms more, say they get introduced to solid foods or drink other stuff, then it's harder for them. They have to learn to push it out. How do they know how to push? Who taught them? Nobody, right? And unlike other things where they could actually watch us doing it, I'm sure most babies don't watch us pooping. Or if so, we don't really describe, explain, are not very expressive, right? You see many children, babies, they change their facial expression. They have this funny look because they're training, they're putting pressure on, they're trying to get stuff out. So there's a lot of stuff involved in pooping that we don't think about. You have to get the stuff all the way down to the bottom part of your gut, right? Most of us think that's just natural, happens, but that's not quite true. There are certain people who can make it work faster than others, right? Some people have a faster gut transit time. That's what medical term for it. I mean, I don't know. I feel I can move it along. not psychological, but your brain has control over all these things. These are muscles we say are smooth muscles that your body has no control, but that's obviously not true. Like your esophagus, people swallow swords all the time. Not literally all the time, but not uncommon, right? And if their esophagus were to spasm because there's stuff in there trying to move it along, they would die. It would slit their esophagus and they would bleed and blah, 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 right? But they're okay. So somehow they control these muscles. And I feel like I could get stuff along too. And the question is at the very bottom, how do you get it out? So most of us apply pressure. You bear down. You apply pressure, you try to squeeze, right? There's two components that are key. One is applying pressure, which most people know how to do. The second is you got to open that anus, that valve, to let it out. And it's surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, a lot of people in America do the opposite. They squeeze it. So you're squeezing here to push it out, but you're squeezing this too. You know, we thought anal type, blah, blah, blah. And it's not surprising given that most people don't learn how to poop. They just learn how to not poop, right? You're potty trained. They teach you, they scold you, they shame you, however they train you. But you can't poop until you're on the toilet. Just cannot. Like, cannot. But some of us do, right? If you have diarrhea, you're going to leak. Poop on the bed, poop while you're getting to the bathroom, blah, 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 right? And that's because it's just so loose, you can't hold it, you can't control it. And so when you're a little baby, it just comes out. So when do you learn this active straining, opening, pushing, all these things that require quite a bit of coordination, surprisingly? I don't think you do. Nobody teaches you. We don't explain it to them. They just sort of have to get it, right? I mean, everything else is aping or imitation, or maybe you can use more fancy terms. But this thing, they just have to learn themselves. So miralax, one way I look at it is, while she's in the process of learning, right? She's training herself. And maybe she's successful now because she knows how to poop. Before she would cry. I mean, stuff comes out really hard. But recently, stuff still came out really hard, but she didn't cry. Maybe she's just better at it now, right? So you give her an easier time so she can build herself up and push through the hard stuff. And that's when, I guess, tapers aren't necessary. When the body could do it out themselves. They just needed some time. But still goes back to the question, why do we need a taper? Because I could tell you, for all these talks of tapering, for alcohol, chronic drinkers, for steroids, some people don't taper and they're perfectly fine. Why? What is it about the people? Or is it just that we don't have a good understanding of how medication in the body works?